Japan sits at the edge of a region where the balance of power is shifting faster than at any point since the end of World War II. For decades, the country relied on the promise of American protection and the comfort of a strictly defensive military posture written into its post-war identity. But the Indo-Pacific is no longer the predictable environment Japan once knew. The threats are closer, faster, and more complex. And in response, Japan is stepping into a new era, one defined not by passivity, but by speed, precision, and deterrence. This new era is symbolized by a single weapon, a weapon so fast and so maneuverable that it forces even the most powerful nations in Asia to rethink everything they thought they knew about warfare. It's called the Hypervelocity Guided Projectile, or HVGP. And its arrival marks a turning point not only for Japan, but for the entire Indo-Pacific region. For nearly 80 years, Japan lived under the constraints of a pacifist constitution. Its military forces were designed not to attack, but simply to endure whatever threat might come. But endurance alone is no longer enough. Japan's security environment has shifted at a pace its policy could not keep up with. To understand why the HVGP matters and why Japan is embracing this dramatic shift, you have to understand the labyrinth of danger that surrounds the Japanese archipelago. Japan is a nation of thousands of islands spread out like stepping stones in a sea of rising tension. To the west lies China, a country undergoing the most aggressive military buildup of the 21st century. Beijing's rise isn't quiet or subtle. It's loud, relentless, and purposeful. Chinese naval vessels patrol closer and closer to Japanese waters, probing, provoking, and signaling dominance. The East China Sea has become a stage for strategic shadowboxing, especially around the Senkaku Islands, territory Japan administers, but China claims with increasing boldness. China has also invested heavily in hypersonic weapons, including the DF-17, a glide vehicle capable of blistering speeds and unpredictable maneuvers. For Japan, this is no abstract threat. It's a weapon explicitly designed to bypass missile defenses the nation once considered adequate. It's a reminder that in modern war, speed is survival. Then there's North Korea, unpredictable, nuclear-armed, and increasingly aggressive. Pyongyang's missiles have flown directly over Japanese territory, triggering emergency alerts and sending millions scrambling for shelter. Some of these missiles are believed to be capable of carrying nuclear warheads. Others are intentionally launched on trajectories that test the speed of Japan's response. North Korea isn't just a distant menace. It's an immediate danger, only minutes away from striking any point within the country. In this environment, Japan faced a harsh truth. Missiles could arrive faster than defenses could react. A purely defensive posture meant waiting to be hit. And waiting to be hit is not a strategy. It's a vulnerability. This realization sparked one of the most profound strategic shifts in Japan's modern history. Instead of relying solely on defensive systems, Japanese planners concluded they needed the ability to strike back. Not to wage war, but to prevent one. Not to threaten neighbors, but to make sure no neighbor ever believed an attack could go unanswered. The HVGP is the embodiment of that shift. Hypersonic weapons are defined by speeds above Mach 5, but speed alone isn't what makes them terrifying. It's maneuverability. Traditional ballistic missiles follow predictable arcs. Modern air defenses can anticipate where they're going. But hypersonic glide vehicles don't behave. They twist, dive, veer, and cut through the sky like a blade searching for pressure points. Japan's HVGP is built on this principle, not as a boost glide weapon like China's DF-17, but as a maneuverable re-entry vehicle launched atop a solid fuel rocket booster. Once released, The HVGP's warhead streaks downward at hypersonic speeds, weaving through the atmosphere like a phantom. The combination of speed and agility makes it nearly impossible for conventional air defenses to track, let alone hit. Japan isn't just building a missile, it's building unpredictability, a weapon designed to keep adversaries guessing until it's too late. Behind the scenes, Japan's acquisition, technology, and logistics agency, working with Mitsubishi Heavy Industries, has been racing to perfect the system years ahead of the original schedule. Tests conducted in the United States validated its design and performance, leading Japan to accelerate the program with remarkable urgency. The government now expects the HVGP to be in the hands of the Ground Self-Defense Force as early as 2026 or 2027. But what sets this system apart isn't just speed or maneuverability, it's the layered evolution built directly into its design. Japan is planning multiple blocks of the HVGP. The first, Block 1, will likely reach ranges between 500 and 900 kilometers. That alone allows Japan to hold a staggering number of targets at risk. But Block 2 stretches even farther, potentially reaching 2,000 kilometers. And the proposed Block 2B variant goes further still, with plans for a jaw-dropping 3,000-kilometer reach sometime in the 2030s. This isn't a weapon meant to sit on a shelf. It's meant to grow, adapt, and transform alongside the threats Japan faces. The warheads themselves are specialized for mission type: ship-killing penetrators for naval targets, and hardened warheads for reinforced ground installations. With a mixture of satellite and inertial guidance, the missile can strike deep, strike fast, and strike accurately. And Japan isn't developing this capability in isolation. In one of the most significant moves of its alliance with the United States, Japan has become a core partner in developing the Glide Phase Interceptor, a missile designed specifically to shoot down hypersonic weapons during their most dangerous phase. Shooting down a hypersonic missile used to be considered nearly impossible. Now, Japan is helping build the system that attempts to do exactly that. Taken together, the HVGP and the Glide Phase Interceptor send a clear, unmistakable message. Japan intends not only to respond to hypersonic threats, but to counter them, both offensively and defensively. This marks the emergence of a doctrine Japan once considered unthinkable: counterstrike capability. The shift became official in December 2022, when Japan released a new national security strategy, acknowledging that purely defensive systems could no longer guarantee survival. Deterrence required the ability to eliminate launch sites, disrupt invasions, and neutralize threats before they multiplied. If an adversary launched missiles at Japan, Tokyo needed the ability to silence the next wave. For China, North Korea, and Russia, this changes the strategic math entirely. The HVGP's primary role, according to analysts, is to defeat naval power, especially China's carriers. These carriers are more than floating airfields. They're symbols of power projection. Beijing's plans for regional dominance depend heavily on their ability to sail freely through contested waters. But a weapon like the HVGP can hold them at risk from hundreds, even thousands of kilometers away. A single well-executed strike could take out a ship worth billions, along with its aircraft, crew, and strategic influence. Suddenly, China's naval advantage looks a lot less stable. The same logic applies to North Korea's mobile missile launchers and command nodes. A hypersonic strike capability disrupts their ability to hide and survive. It forces them to think twice before threatening Japan in the first place. And for Japan itself, the HVGP offers something priceless: control over its surrounding waters. The southwestern islands, stretched thin across a volatile region, can now be defended not just with patrols and surveillance, but with hard power. If an enemy fleet approached, hypersonic missiles could meet them long before they reached Japanese shores. This positions Japan to create its own A2/AD bubble, a defensive sphere where enemy ships must navigate the constant threat of a nearly unstoppable attack. The fact that the HVGP launchers are mobile makes them even harder to track or pre-target. They can be quickly repositioned by aircraft or naval transport, turning the entire archipelago into a shifting maze of firing positions. This new ability to create a defensive buffer isn't theoretical. It's already reshaping planning inside the Japanese Ministry of Defense. The country's southwestern chain, Okinawa, Miyakojima, Ishigaki, Yonaguni, has long been seen as dangerously exposed. These islands sit directly on the front lines of any future conflict involving Taiwan or the East China Sea. For decades, Japan's options here were limited. Place troops on the islands and hope they could hold out, or rely entirely on the US military. With the HVGP, that vulnerability transforms into leverage. Launchers stationed in Kyushu or the Ryukyu Islands can reach enemy ships and land-based threats far beyond Japan's coastline, creating a zone where hostile forces cannot operate without risking sudden and catastrophic loss. That gives Japan something it has not had in generations: deterrence through reach. This shift didn't occur overnight. For decades, Japan's strategic culture was built around the belief that its constitution prevented it from ever fielding offensive or long-range strike capabilities. But as the behavior of China and North Korea changed, the Japanese public's perception changed with it. North Korea's missile launches, sometimes without warning, forced millions of Japanese citizens into shelters and train stations. These weren't distant geopolitical issues. They were lived experiences. They created a sense of vulnerability that began to outweigh fears about abandoning pacifism. At the same time, Beijing's pressure near Japan's islands intensified, and Japan's leaders recognized that relying exclusively on the United States came with its own risks. Washington might remain committed, but regional crises could erupt faster than American forces could respond. Japan needed a tool that would give it agency. The HVGP is the clearest expression of Japan reclaiming that agency. And it arrives in an era where Japan has committed to doubling its defense spending. A historic decision that signaled to the world that Tokyo no longer intends to be a passive observer in regional security. A military that once prioritized minimalism is now building a layered, advanced ecosystem designed to function seamlessly with US forces while maintaining independent capability. The hypersonic missile is simply the spearhead. Behind it is a wave of new modernization initiatives, technologies and platforms that complement one another, forming a coherent strategy built for the challenges of the 2030s and beyond. One of the most ambitious projects is the Global Combat Air Program, a partnership between Japan, the United Kingdom, and Italy. This sixth-generation fighter isn't just another aircraft. It's designed as a networked combat hub. It will control autonomous drones, integrate hypersonic weapons, and share data across land, sea, air, and space. The program's joint venture, Edgewing, represents an unprecedented level of cooperation and long-term commitment. These fighters will eventually work hand-in-hand with the HVGP, providing targeting data, tracking enemy movements, and ensuring strikes are executed with maximum efficiency. Japan is creating an ecosystem where every asset strengthens every other. At sea, the Aegis system-equipped vessels, the massive ASEVs, stand as floating fortresses. Their size alone makes them imposing, but it's what they carry that truly matters. With 128 vertical launch cells, they can field a combination of missile defense systems, tomahawks, and eventually the glide phase interceptor. With SPY-7 radar, they will detect threats long before they reach Japanese airspace, feeding data into a network designed to respond instantly and decisively. In the unmanned world, Japan is leaning heavily into robotics and automation. The SHIELD program aims to create a distributed, hard-to-target defensive network using drones on land, at sea, and in the air. These systems can hunt enemy ships, track incoming missiles, or serve as early warning platforms. Combined with newly developed satellites that specialize in tracking hypersonic weapons, Japan is laying the groundwork for a layered sensing system that feeds directly into offensive and defensive weapons, like the HVGP and GPI. Taken together, these programs represent a fundamental reorientation of Japan's military identity. The country is no longer building just enough capability to survive. It's building enough capability to deter. This transformation is not lost on Japan's rivals. China now faces a neighbor no longer content to simply defend its shores, a neighbor capable of striking the ships and bases that underwrite Beijing's regional ambitions. A neighbor whose hypersonic weapons complicate every simulation and every war plan. A neighbor building a multi-domain ecosystem that can strike, hide, sense, and counterstrike. For the first time, China must consider the possibility that a military confrontation with Japan would not be one-sided or straightforward. The HVGP forces Beijing to think cautiously because even its most prized carriers and forward bases would be at risk. North Korea faces similar concerns. For years, Pyongyang relied on mobility and unpredictability to keep its missile systems safe. But a weapon with hypersonic speed and long-range precision compresses those margins. Suddenly, North Korea's strategy of rapid-fire surprise launches becomes vastly more dangerous for them. A miscalculation could expose their launch sites to immediate retaliation. And even Russia, though geographically distant from Japan's main concerns, cannot ignore the implications. Moscow has long considered its eastern region strategically quiet. That assumption is no longer guaranteed. In Tokyo, however, this evolution is not seen as provocation. It is seen as necessity. Japan's leaders understand something crucial. The cost of inaction is higher than the cost of modernization. The HVGP isn't about dominating the region. It's about ensuring no one else can dominate the region without facing consequences. Yet with this transformation comes a broader ripple effect. Other nations are already taking notice. As Japan pushes deeper into hypersonic technology, advanced fighter programs, and autonomous defense networks, its allies are recalibrating how they integrate with Japan's capabilities, and its rivals are reconsidering their timelines, their deployments, and their long-term strategies. Some analysts fear this may spark a new arms race in Asia. But for Japan, the alternative, an imbalance where its adversaries possess overwhelming offensive capability, is unacceptable. Stability comes from balance. Peace comes from deterrence. And deterrence in the modern era requires speed. Speed to detect. Speed to respond. Speed to strike. Speed to neutralize. That is the essence of the HVGP, and Japan, long constrained by its own history, has now become one of the key authors of that chapter. The hypervelocity-guided projectile is not just a technological milestone, it is a strategic declaration. Japan will defend itself. Japan will strike back if necessary. Japan will not be caught off guard again. And most importantly, Japan will shape the strategic future of Asia, not simply react to it. The question now is whether this new balance of power will stabilize the region or push the Indo-Pacific into a dangerous era of brinkmanship? The answer will depend on the choices made by the very nations the HVGP was built to deter.